The reality is, not every chess game is going to see you on the attack all the time. You need to be able to defend accurately as well. So in this video, I'm going to share 6 important defensive chess techniques to allow you to keep your king safe and turn the game around. Rule number 1 is to trade queens when you have king safety trouble. The queen is the most powerful attacking piece on the chessboard, so if it can be eliminated, then so too can be a lot of the danger that your king is in. A great example of this occurred in a game played earlier this year by one of my students. It's black to move here, and if we do an evaluation of the position, we can see that black's king is in far more danger than white's king. So the correct plan often comes from the correct evaluation of the position. In this position, the move queen to f3 virtually forces the queens off the board. If white tries to avoid the queen trade, let's say with something like queen to h2, well then the knight drops and black has a decisive material advantage. So after the queens are traded though, black is not really in any danger anymore. Okay, you're going to lose this pawn, but then black is also going to win back a pawn. And probably the 2 passed pawns on the f-file and e-file are going to decide the game in black's favour. Certainly black is not worse here. In the game though, instead, my student played rook to b8, so that didn't understand the priority in the position properly. Trying to launch an attack against the white king when your own king is actually in much more danger is not the right way to go. What happened from here was we got knight takes d6, and then trying to counterattack, but then white started coming in with the threats. Rook to f1, queen to h6, and then after knight to f7 check, at a minimum, white is winning the queen, and went on to win the game. So understand that when you're in a position like this, where your own king is in potential danger, try and get the queens off the board, and that way you'll be able to defend much more easily. If you enjoyed that last example, then click subscribe for more. There's plenty more instructive chess content coming up in the pipeline from me very soon. Now on to rule number 2, which is all about prioritizing defending with the major pieces, as in the queen and the rooks. Every position is different, of course, but very often these major pieces control more defensive squares than the minor pieces do, the minor pieces being the knights and the bishops. Our model game here is actually an over-the-board game which I played just a few weeks ago, Koskin versus Rose 2026. Now I had the black pieces here, but I've got this from white's point of view because it was actually white who needed to defend in this position. If we take a look, the white king has been very slow to castle, and the black queen on a6 is preventing that from happening. Black's also got some activity happening with the rook on the open c-file, and the bishop also influencing a lot of important squares. It was actually black to move here, and I played with the black pieces rook to c2, and my opponent blundered with knight to d3. We're going to see why this was a mistake, and also what white should have done instead. Let's see how the game turned out first. After knight to d3, I was able to play bishop to d2, and then white played king to d1, and I added more pressure via rook f to c8. And white's position pretty quickly collapses from here. White tried to play knight to c5, breaking the coordination between the 2 rooks, while also attacking the queen, but I was able to solve both problems with just one move. Queen to b7 is a pretty superficial threat on the rook, so I just moved that one out of the way. And then after bishop to a5, I've got too many threats here with the black pieces. One threat is queen to e2 mate. Another threat is to capture on d4, which will also lead to checkmate. White tried to defend both of these threats with queen to e4, but now a pretty simple combination ended the game. Rook takes d4 check, and the idea is not to recapture the queen, but instead to come into e2 with checkmate. Okay, so that's what happened in the game, because my opponent played knight to d3, defending with a minor piece. So let's contrast that with the rule that I've introduced in this video. Instead, defend with the queen. The queen to d3 is much more forcing. It attacks the rook, and it also offers a queen trade. Similar to the last rule, if the queens are traded, then white's king is not really in any danger anymore. And in fact, white is a pawn up in this position. If black doesn't want to trade queens, then probably necessary is queen to c8. But now white gets to castle, and again, white doesn't have the same problems as we saw in the game. So it was really this choice which decided the game. Do you defend with the major piece via queen to d3, or with a minor piece via knight to d3? My opponent chose wrongly, and as you saw, the game soon ended in my favour. But I think after queen to d3, I wouldn't have had much of an attack at all. I've either got to trade queens or allow white to castle, and either way, I think white is absolutely fine. If you're serious about improving your results in chess, then I work with a handful of ambitious students through the Road to 2000 Chess Mentorship Program. You can apply to work with me by clicking the link in the description below. Now on to our third rule, which is all about giving back material in order to keep the king safe. Our model game here is a very old game. It's Chigorin versus Caro, 1898. It's black to move here, and if we do an evaluation of the position, we can see that white's king looks very exposed on e3. But black's king isn't so safe either. It hasn't been able to castle, and the bishop on a3 is preventing that. In the game, black decided to grab a pawn via queen takes c2, but this gave white time to develop with a threat. With rook a to c1, the black queen then had to retreat, and then white got another rook towards the centre of the board, and the game continued. And I can tell you that white went on to win this, incredibly, with the king seemingly so exposed on e3 early in the game. What black should have done instead here, I think, is very instructive. It's to sacrifice a pawn in order to get the king castled, with the move b4. Now, if the bishop takes, black can take with the knight, white takes back, and black gets to castle. And I think black's got all the threats here. I mean, now the rooks easily come towards the centre of the board, and the white king just looks too exposed to me. It's tough to believe that white would be able to survive this. And if white takes with the pawn, you can still castle, because the pawn has blocked the influence over the f8 square. By the way, don't be worried about this move, b5, attacking the knight, and also unveiling an attack against the rook on f8, because black has a lot of checks and ability to create threats in a position like this one. For instance, queen to h6 check, the white king has to move, and then you can answer this threat with a bigger threat, attacking the white queen. Let's say that white tries to block this. Well, now you can actually take on e5. You can't take back with the bishop because you'll lose the queen. And if you take with the queen, well, again, you quickly regain the material, and black is much better, thanks to the safer king. I think it's really instructive, back in the original position, right? White is in king safety trouble, but black is too. But black can make it so that white is the only one in king safety trouble with this pawn sacrifice, getting their own king safe, and that way we'll be able to create long-term pressure against the white king. Rule number 4 is to defend the attacking focal point. To illustrate this, we're going to use a sideline from a very famous chess game played between Marshall and Byrne in 1900. This game is best known as the pipe game, and if you get the chance, it's well worth checking out the entire game along with Marshall's very entertaining comments on it. But anyway, let's take a look at this position where it's white to move. Let's say white plays h5. Well, in this case, it's very clear what white's attacking intentions are. It's to capture on g6. This is the focal point. White's got the pawn, the bishop, and the queen all aiming at this square. So one way for black to defend would be with the move queen to e8. This way, if white tries to open up, the queen now lends extra defense to the g6 square. Let's take a look at what could happen if black ignores the threat. Let's say a move such as rook to e8. Well, in this case, g6 is going to be too weak, and after white captures and black takes back, there would surely be a bishop sacrifice on g6. This is actually what happened in the actual game. So black takes back, and then the queen enters, bishop blocks, and then knight to g5 is very strong. Black could try and trade queens, but there's checkmate in 2 here. Pause the video if you want to try and find it for yourself. It's with rook to h8. The bishop can't take because it's pinned, and if the king takes, then it's checkmate on h7. So just be aware of what your opponent is planning. Look at what the attacking focal point could be. Here it's g6, and sometimes you do need to defend directly. A move like queen to e8 can help avert disaster. Rule number 5 is to keep lines around your own king closed. To illustrate this, I've got another one of my own classical over-the-board games, Korolchik vs Rose 2026, and this is a situation where I got it wrong. My opponent played g5, and the correct way to proceed was with h5, following the rule that I'm introducing in this video, keeping lines closed, because with this locked pawn structure now around my king, it's going to be very hard for white to continue attacking. But I had different ideas about this position. I was thinking that I needed to get this knight and this bishop to more active squares. And admittedly, these 2 pieces are not that great, but always keep your king safe first. I played f4 to free a square for the knight or the bishop to come to. And white followed this up with knight to g4. Bishop to f5 wins a tempo against the white queen. And then queen to a4 wins another tempo against the white rook. But eventually this pawn on f4 becomes very weak, as we'll see. Lines are getting opened up around my king now. I recapture with the bishop, and then white initiates a trade of rooks. And after a few more trades, this pawn on f4 eventually falls, and I'm in big trouble. I might have dominance over the queen side with this well-placed queen on the second rank, but actually it's my king which is going to fall into trouble. There's moves like knight to g5 coming, the queen is also aggressively placed, and I went on to lose this game. And all of this could be avoided by just following the rule that I'm introducing in this video. Back in the original position, when white tries to open lines, simply h5 to keep them closed. Now I know this won't be for everyone, but for a small number of you watching, there is the chance to work with me through the Road to 2000 Chess Mentorship Program, which you can check out by clicking the link in the description below. Now, of course, my time is very limited. I can only work with a small number of dedicated students, but if that does sound like you and you've got the time and the resources to dedicate to chess improvement, then click the link in the description below, fill in the application form to apply to work with me, and I'll look forward to meeting you on the Road to 2000. Rule number 6 is to anticipate your opponent's plans. This may be the most important rule of all, whether that's in a position where you're defending, or almost any chess position really. To illustrate this, we've got a position from Gordon versus Williams 2019, where it's white to move. Now, seeing the pressure that black has got against h3, white decided to play g4, and black couldn't resist and decided to sacrifice via bishop takes g4. Now this is a mistake, giving up a piece for 2 pawns like this, but black does get something of an attack here, and you need to defend carefully. Positions like this will happen to you. Your opponents will make unsound sacrifices, and if they do, you don't really have much choice. You have to accept the material and then defend, prove them wrong. And that's what happened in this game. Let's run through a few more moves. So white developed, and black advanced with f5, rook to e1, and then the other knight comes to d7. And it's this moment here where I want to pause. The knight came into f6, and what could be black's idea here? Because if you don't anticipate black's next move, then you're going to be in big trouble as white. Well, the intention of bringing the knight to f6 is to bring it to e4 next. And that's why in the game, white played e3. So that the move knight to e4 could be met with rook to e2, defending the f2 square, which is what black was looking to target. If you don't see this move coming, if you just play something else, like let's say taking more space in the center with a move like c4, then knight to e4 will come and you're going to be in enormous trouble here. There's not actually a good way to defend this pawn now. And after making an unsound sacrifice, black is actually going to make it work. So you've got to be so careful in chess. always ask yourself, what is your opponent planning? That's what white did here. White saw that this move, knight to e4, was on the way, and looked to take countermeasures with e3, followed by rook to e2. Now that you've learned about these defensive chess patterns, click here to learn more about attacking chess. It's much more fun to attack than to defend, and it's usually a more successful way of playing too. So check out the video. I really think it'll help improve your results.